Welcome to Journaling with Nature, the podcast for those who want to turn curiosity into wonder, a pencil sketch into a rabbit hole of discovery, a moment of stillness into a life full of joy. I'm your host, Bethan Burton. Let's open the pages of our nature journals and explore this world together. Hello, this is episode 63. I met today's guest, Verena Hillgärtner, actually through this podcast. Verena is a listener of the show, and when she began supporting the podcast on Patreon, I sent her a message to say thank you, and we began chatting and connecting on Instagram, and there was just this instant and deep connection. I love when you meet someone and it instantly feels like you know them and that you've known them for years. That's how it felt when I met Verena. I loved her straight away. She's a podcaster, a nature journal teacher, and a wilderness guide. And the beautiful part about her work is that she's helping people connect with nature right in the heart of big city Berlin. Verena helps people to find that little spark of wildness inside them, that need for nature connection that we all have. When we spoke for the podcast, it was like spending time with an old and dear friend. You might hear it in our voices as we chat. We talked about valuing nature around us, even when we think it's something common. We spoke about learning empathy, connecting with ourselves and others through nature journaling, and lots of other things. Let's listen. Thank you so much for being here with me. I am just full of love and excitement and ready to chat to you. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Beth, and thank you for having me.
So tell me about nature in your early life. Have you always been connected with nature the way you are now?
That's a very nice question. I love it in your podcast episodes. Yeah, I thought about it, and I am connected to nature through all my life. But thinking back at it was kind of interesting because I forgot it in kind of a way. In my early childhood, we had a garden at my family's place, a pretty small one actually, but it was always outside. And I loved sleeping outside, and I was always nagging my mom, like, "Can I sleep in the tent outside tonight?" And she was always like, "Oh, yeah. You can. Of course you can. No problem." And someday she had enough and I was like, "Oh, I want to." And she was, "No, tomorrow is school. You cannot sleep always outside. It's a small town. It's a small town. Everyone knows that I'm always sleeping outside." And I was really grumpy and I was 8 years old and I was like, "No, Mom, I'm staying outside tonight." And I slept in my sleeping bag on the porch. And it got cold at night, and the slugs came out, and like at 12 at midnight, I came up, "Mom, can I sleep, please?
Can I go back?
Yeah, can I back inside, please?" I was very connected to slugs that night, but I think those are the early memories I have of the deep down feeling of needing to be outside, and that stayed with me my whole life. Yeah.
That is a wonderful story.
Yeah, the deep need of being outside, and I didn't know it till recently. Actually, the questions you ask on your podcast, I got to remember my own story and was like, wow, it's going back a long time.
And so now you create under the name Wieder Wilder Werden, if I pronounce that correctly.
Yes, correctly.
And this is something close to rewilding ourselves. I wonder, do you know the English translation?
Yeah, actually it is translated from the English. I was like, what do you call rewilding in German? It was like, you're going wild again, you're again going wild. That's the exact translation of Wieder Wilder Werden. It's the process of getting a little wilderness in your life. And that's the main goal in my life right now, because I'm living in a big city in Germany, in Berlin. And it's not so easy actually, because the first impression you get from a big city is like, wow, where am I? It's a big, gray, stinky place. And where's the wilderness there? And then I got the headline of my life was, okay, I'm going wild now in the city.
Yeah, that's amazing. So tell me, what wildness means to you. What does it look like inside you and outside?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big circle it's connected to everything, the outside and the inside world for me. It's wilderness inside me is the never giving up. It's the always searching for new ways of living my life. The hope that's never going away. I had some bad times in my life, and the wilderness inside me was always like, no, you cannot give up. There's so much beauty and wonder outside that needs to be explored, and it's always kept me going. And outside, I have a lot of plants in my life. I try to get as much wilderness in my life as I can get. Like in the city, there's so many birds and animals. They're so as the people living near to each other, and like opening the eyes helps seeing the animals around you. And then I had the feeling like, oh, I'm not in a very gray, dull place. I'm living between all this life, and the hope came back, and I was in awe that if I look closely and come to a peaceful place in the mind and outside, then the wilderness is always there in myself and outside.
So it just takes tuning in. It doesn't matter where you are, but it takes focusing on what's around you.
Yeah, and the need to want to see it. I think you can live a pretty good life in a big city and never need to see it. For me, it wouldn't be that. But I was amazed that I can live in such a place and be so connected and in awe. What a wonderful place it is. But just opening a kind of door and looked through it, who's also living there next to me. Yeah. But it takes kind of work. It's not coming naturally, for me at least.
But part of your work is helping people do that, right?
Yeah.
Helping people open their eyes.
Yeah, that's because I always get the comment on my Instagram and stuff, like, Verena, how do you do it? You're such a nature person. You're so connected. I could never live in a big city like that. I'm like, oh, well, I bet you could. I could show you how. It's such an amazing place. I know the foxes and the raccoons, and even an owl was outside my window. I'm living in the center of this big city, and there are just owls outside your window. But you need to you know that they're there, to listen to them, and somebody to show you that they're there.
I often ask people what they see when they step outside, and I wonder if you can describe the nature around you, the little places that you're able to find nature in the big city.
Yeah, at the first glance, it's many, many buildings and people and noises. But if you I have a really small park right outside my door. And if I step outside and just sit on the grass or at the bench, and they're just on the grass, there's so many bugs, and the little birds having the bath and wiggling their tails, and then there comes a dog along. There's so many city dwellers, so many city dogs, and the trees are so big and all, because in the city the city is so big and all because of all the people already lived there. And I lived outside the city and there was never a real forest, and I realized that when I moved to a bigger city, because the nature there it's interconnected more than ever, because it's living in a parallel world. And yeah, it's just a wonderful world, and so many amazing things if you take your time, if you just sit there and look, and everyone is coming to you. The smaller ones, the brave ones are coming first and saying, hello, I'm a little mosquito, I want to greet you in this big city. Everyone's like, no, I don't want to. But I'm like, yeah, those are living here too, and you can see them. They're so amazing.
I think there's parallels, isn't there, in terms of like thinking about a city as this busy network of people going about their day, interconnected in their own human way and interacting with each other. And when you sit long enough with nature, you realize that nature's doing its own thing. They're going about their day with or without you. And there is a lot of parallels there between the city life and like busy nature happenings.
Yeah, it's so cool to see like the pigeons here on the bus station. They're like people. They're just hanging out there, talking to each other. Some are just hopping on the bus and going somewhere. And like, did this just happen? They're just living their life in and between our own lives. And some people see them and some not. And it's amazing if I or some friends of mine just look at them and talk about what's happening next to us. Other people stop and they look. So why are they looking at the pigeons? And then they hear us talk and. Oh yeah, there's something happening, looking up from their phones, and I'm like, oh wow, yeah, I didn't see that. And it's amazing if you give some little points of, yeah, look at that. People are so thankful and grateful if they get to see just a glimpse of your world or their world. It's all of our world.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes we have a tendency to rank nature in terms of value. Something really rare or something found in a rainforest or an exotic place has high value, and something living like a flock of pigeons can just be completely overlooked, and that we don't take time. They don't even register in our vision. But this sort of ranking of nature in terms of value doesn't make much sense when you think about it.
Yeah, we have so many prejudices about some animals, and they're like, well, a flock of pigeon, I don't care. And I was just saying to my boyfriend this morning, well, imagine if this was a flock of falcons or something, people would be stop and just drop their mouth open, and they're just pigeons, but they're so beautiful. No one looks like the other. Everyone have sparkly feathers around their neck, and I saw a big brown one that was very mobbing the other ones, who were like, oh no, we don't like this one. They all have their own character and their own habits, and if you look at them, you know them. You know not just the flock of pigeons, but you know the exact individuals. And that's often overlooked.
Yeah. Here in Brisbane, we have a very common bird in the city, which is an ibis. And they are, here in Brisbane, everyone calls them bin chickens. And I
heard of that.
Yeah, I feel slightly offended when I hear this. It's like, look at them objectively, look at them without the prejudice, and you'll see that they're actually really beautiful and really interesting. Tell me how you've heard about this.
My roommate actually told me about them because we were chatting about how the birds of Europe and Australia are different. She's from Australia. And we're like, wow, those birds are completely different. And I was in awe of those ibises. And she was like, that's like a pigeon. I'm like, no, it's so beautiful. And we have some creature that's also has a very funny name that's very degrading for that, raccoon. It's called the trash panda here because it's living in the trash cans, and it's an invasive species here.
Okay.
They don't live here originally, and they are always raiding the trash cans, and nobody likes them, and I really have a heart for them. I always rescue them out, and if you call animal rescue, they say, no, we don't come, and that's very sad. But they like the trash pandas. They're very cute.
Yeah, I think this is a really important thing, to value nature for itself, whether it's nearby, whether it's common, whether it's the rarest thing you'll ever see. I think, and that is partly how we get connected in a big city, because you can find these things. You can find a bin chicken or a trash panda.
Yeah, they're living a life like our own, and often they're so overlooked. And sometimes it's hard for me to connect to other people who are very like, oh, I don't care who's living next to me. I really don't care. And that's like, I decided for myself that I really love to show people the world I see, but there has to be a small like yeah, a flower that can bloom, you have to, the need to see nature and to feel nature must be in your life, because otherwise, if there's no intrinsic need for that, it's really hard for me, because it's hurting me, and the nature, the beauty I see, if it's not welcomed in other people's life, it's, yeah, sometimes very sad that people don't care. But I have very, very nice experience with other people who are just irritated at first, like, okay, why are you looking at that? Why are you drawing that trash over flower? Why are you looking at that bug? It's just a bug. I'm like, that's not just a bug. It's a yellow bug. It's amazing. And then they're intrigued, like, okay, you're very happy about the bug. I cannot comprehend why. And then the nice talk starts. Then they're intrigued.
Yeah. So part of your work involves sharing your delight with others, and then they get curious about, why are you so delighted by this thing?
I irritate them with my delightness about nature. Why are you so happy in a big city? Why?
Well, I'm reading a book at the moment. It's called Nature Obscura, and it's all about finding nature in the big city. I will put it in the show notes for this episode.
I need to read it, maybe.
It's amazing. It's by an author called Kelly Brenner, and I'm going to interview her on the podcast very soon. But one thing she talks about is that in a big city, invertebrates are a big source of nature, and getting down low, looking at the small things can be a really important source of nature connection. Do you find that? Do you find invertebrates are everywhere in the city?
Everywhere, yeah. If you like it or not, they're everywhere. And people are overseeing them again, or are very disgusted and trying to get rid of them, or stepping on them on purpose, and like, wow, no. But I always like the saying of those are the bravest. The small ones are always coming to you with open hand, reaching out and say, hello, here I am. Let me get to know you. And those are the thankful ones. You can look at it, and they're not running away like you have to sit for 2 hours to get to see a fox, even if you know where he lives. But yeah, the small ones are always coming out and say, hello, I take a ride on you, please. Can I come with you? And I try to also the children, the younger humans. Sometimes they already have the knowledge of their grown-ups of, oh no, I should not reach out. But some of them you can catch on a curious mindset. So you can say, oh no, it's not dangerous. You can reach out. You can take them on your hand. You can, if you're very gentle, you can touch them. You can see what they're doing. They have a life of their own. They're like, oh no, yeah, they're not running away. I can really look at it. And then a certain calmness and amazement is coming into their lives.
That's so beautiful. I really think that is important, that children, as long as they can, maintain that gentle connection, that empathy. And it reminds me today, actually, I was with my son, we were playing, and he found a moth. He said, look at this. And he picked it up on his fingers so gently, and he started to walk towards the door, and the moth fell off his fingers, and he gently picked it up again, and he walked, and he did this about 4 or 5 times until he got to the door to gently move the moth away from being harmed by our game. And I thought, yes, that's so precious to take that moment, because most adults would just sweep it away, but to take that time to connect in that way was precious.
So a very good example. I think I worked a lot of years in a forest kindergarten, and so you see a lot of children, how they interact with nature has a lot to do with how the parents and other close grown-ups interact with nature. But as a forest kindergarten teacher, you're also a person they look up to, and then you can change their mindset. And I think it's a good thing for the whole world if children are more empathic and have more empathy in their life.
I was with some children the other day, and this one girl who goes to a forest kindergarten, she wanted to use one long piece of the plant for a fishing rod. And she went up to the plant and she said she said, "Hello, plant. Can I have a fishing rod?" And she asked the plant before she plucked the frond.
Yeah, that's a thing we also teach at the kindergarten, because it's so, why shouldn't you ask another creature if you take something? That it's a precious thing if you can ask for it. And nobody knows if they get an answer or not, but the mere the gesture of just asking is amazing, and the feeling that it's
agree.
just, yeah, wow. Oh, that's so good to hear.
Can you speak a little bit more about your experience as a forest kindergarten teacher?
Oh yeah, I love that time. I have a weird background from media design to teaching at a kindergarten and everything else with wilderness teaching, and yeah, I brought all of this into the kindergarten, and yeah, but I worked there because I wanted to be outside. I was like, oh, where can I work outside the whole day? Okay, kindergarten it is. And so I was like, the children were teaching me a lot. I was there to look after them, but the children were the actual teachers of how to be outside in nature, and they were the ones that, no, we go outside. And I was, it's raining. Yeah, it's raining. Like, okay. And they were like so connected because they were longer in the kindergarten than me. They were like 4 years there the most of the time, and yeah, they showed me how to be outside and be in nature, and and they pointed at the birds. They had no idea of the names, and I was like, oh no, I don't know the names either. And they're like, I don't care. We call it like the what was the word? The yellow pika bird. I don't know the name anymore. And we're like, okay, wow, that's a great mindset to go outside in nature. Just be there and name it.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's
so it
cool.
was a wonderful time and had a big impression on my life. I don't work there anymore because it's a very hard thing to look after a lot of children when you're alone, and everyone is with knives and stuff. And it was, yeah, the general teaching situation in kindergartens in Germany is very, yeah, it's another thing that, yeah, it's a hard way.
Forest kindergartens common in Germany?
They get more and more common there. In Berlin, there are at least like 20, but some of them have a concept of half of the day they're inside and some forest days. But there are actually a lot of kindergartens that are out the whole day. Yeah, it's beautiful, but you have to be really the teachers, the kindergarten teachers have to be a outside and nature connected person too. If they're always like, I want to go inside, and yeah. It's a pretty it's a thing in my personal story where I have to get to a place where I'm in peace with it, because I'm always wanting to teach children, but not in that environment of a kindergarten situation.
So you have this amazing, inspiring Instagram page, and I've been exploring it lately, and I'm interested, you do this thing where you hold up a little piece of paper, and on the paper you have something inspiring about nature, and I'd love for you to talk about that little gesture of holding up those nature inspirations.
Yeah, it started a long time ago actually. Now it's a piece of birch, how do you call it, the thing around the tree?
Bark.
Birch bark, yeah, right. And I photographed it. It's not always a new kind of bark, but I had a journal full of nature inspirational words I collected over the years. Those are my words, and it was, when I was laying outside looking at the sky, or just having in my nature journal some inspirational thoughts, and it was like, I want to share this with the world, but in a kind of a way that's also liked by Instagram. And those inspirational quotes are always like going good, but I wanted to package it in a nature kind of way. So I said, oh, why don't you write your words on a bark? Yeah, and it's really nice because people are interacting now with it's a very intimate way that people are now looking at my way of seeing the world, because words are, they're straight from my heart. And yeah, it's nice that people reshare it, and there are no mean comments, always like, oh, I feel that too, I never found the words. And hearing that for me is like, there are a lot of work to do, and if people feel, or I can give them some framework for how they feel and connect, that's makes me very happy.
Yeah, and I think you are just a very, very authentic person, and you speak right from the heart, and I think that's what people are responding to when they're connecting that way. And each of your messages is very much an invitation to the person to come close to themselves and reflect on how they're feeling, and I think that's why it resonates so strongly with people.
Yeah, and it's an invitation to that it's okay if you feel like that. I always felt like kind of an outsider when I'm in nature, just laying in a pile of leaves or just watching at the clouds. And I want to give the people who read the post that it's okay that they're like-minded people, and it's a good thing if you lay outside in the grass and just take your time. And it's okay to be sad that you're also, if you're in tune with the circle of nature going around it, it's not always happy. And I like to be happy, but it was a hard process to go there. But it's okay if you're not. And like to give the people the feeling that they're okay like they are.
Yeah, that's beautiful. In one recent post you talked about, you asked whether home was a place or a feeling. And I love this. And I'm interested to know your answer to that and what makes you have that feeling like you're at home.
Oh, I like that. For me, it's definitely a feeling. I'm far away from home, not far away, but I come from Munich. It's like a 4 or 5 hours of train ride away, and I don't see my parents that often. But the feeling when I talk to them via Skype or anything, that's home is in my heart. I take it everywhere. And my sisters and me always say, no, it's no matter how far we are away, home is we're feeling each other, and that's home. And also coming to a big city and just seeing the tiny birds, I know them from home. That's the feeling I get when I see the birds I know and on places that are first strange to me is home. Nature is everywhere, and so home is everywhere. People are everywhere.
I have this very, very strong feeling that nature of this place where I am is inside me. And so when it's summertime and the heat is so strong that you can almost see it in the air, and it's hard to breathe because of the humidity, and the scent of eucalyptus is in that watery air. It's part of me, and the colors of this landscape are part of me. And I'm wondering about that for you, if the nature of your childhood and your place are home.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's for everyone that the place where you grew up, it stays with you. Your roots are there, and they're interconnected with you. For me, it's the blackbird. I don't know if you know it in Australia. It's just a common blackbird. And there was one blackbird that always sang at my window, and I never realized it till years later in my 20s that it was a blackbird, but the song is written in my heart and my mind, and I can recognize it from everywhere. And when I heard it in Berlin, it was like, wow, that's home. I hear it. It's singing with the birds at my parents' place, and maybe they know each other. I don't know, and they're singing my song from my mom. I don't know. And I think you can meet new home nature. You can connect to new nature, but the first one you get connected to is something special, I guess.
Yeah, I remember when I was in my late teens, I went traveling. I had a couple of years overseas, and when I came back, I walked out. It was summertime. It was Christmas time. I stepped outside of the plane, and that heat, that smell was in the air, and I just started crying. I hadn't seen anything else, just the exit of the airport, but it was boom, like, yeah, that's my smell, that's my heat, and I just cried.
Yeah, it's like a big hug from nature. Welcome home.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh, that sounds amazing. That smell, I cannot imagine it. I never was in Australia or anything, but I know the smell of the pine trees here and the firs, and it's like when I smell that, it's like, yeah, smells is so connected to our feelings and remembering and. Oh, that sounds so nice. Yeah, I'm moved to tears from nature very often.
Yes.
People know me from, oh, Verena's crying. Yeah, she's looking at the cranes. Yeah, that's normal. Like, yeah, why not? I'm moved. And people are like, oh yeah, it's okay to be moved by nature. I like to teach that too.
This is amazing. I feel so connected with you. I feel like we have the same heart.
Yeah, me too.
I'm the same. I just feel that, and quite often it overflows as tears because it's a powerful, powerful feeling.
Yeah.
I'm interested to talk to you because connecting with nature can be a really mindful practice, and I'm wondering about how this and mindfulness intersect for you, how you experience mindfulness in nature.
Wow, yeah, that's it was very hard for me at first because I had the wilderness teaching education, and there are many routines you learn from the like sit spot and walking aimlessly in nature and stuff. It was always very hard for me just to sit calm in nature and just inhale it, because you're confronted with all your own thoughts. It's meditating, but you have some external visual input, so it's a little bit better, but it was very hard for me. And yeah, the hack for me was nature journaling, because I could do something and be present at the same time. So that worked pretty well for me. So that's my art or way of meditating or being present in nature. I have something to do, I have a focus, and in return back, it's helping me to really sit calm in nature, because some trees I know pretty well by now because of journaling them, and now I can just sit with them because they're friends now. It sounds pretty cheesy, but I know that I'm not like I have to know you. I know I have to look at you. So no, I can be calm around you. You just sit with me. I know you, and I can be there. So that's a kind of a process of letting nature in, because when it's in the city, it's pretty loud outside, and really. Yeah, sometimes I don't want to go there. I don't know what's waiting for me. Some other people are sitting there. I'm never alone in some spaces. But if I've been with them a lot of times, then I can calm down.
That's amazing. Tell me how you came to nature journaling, how you found it and how you started.
Journaling or art in general was kind of my study. I did study media design, and drawing was so hard for me. I never liked it. Everyone saying, oh, it looks so good. And I was like, no, it's not coming from the heart. It's a thing I have to do. I have to, be creative now. Like, no, I don't feel it. I don't want to. And when I did have my bachelor degree, I stopped because I didn't have to anymore. I was like, no, I will never do this again. Maybe some digital stuff. And then I came to the whole wilderness education stuff. And I'm like, oh, you have to do some journaling about some creatures that you can grasp all of their mindset and stuff. And I was like, oh no, I have to draw again, no. And I was very resistant. Some photos I just copied, or was like, no, I don't want to draw. And I think it was the fox. I didn't know how to connect to the fox, and I was like, okay, no, I will just sit with a fox in life and journal it. And then it came to me like, oh my, drawing and nature journaling that's the connection of my whole personality. It's the nature loving side in me, and the side in me that always wanted to be creative but didn't find an outlet for it. And it's like the cliche, like, aha moment, like, oh, yes. that's who I am. Thank you for saying that after past my 30s. I found it earlier, but well, better than never. And so I researched, like, what is nature drawing, nature journaling, and then I found John Mueller's and I found, and was like, there are other people. wow, I'm not alone anymore. It was like the Corona times gave me time for that. So I was like binge watching all the free stuff on YouTube from Jack. And yeah, it was like, wow. And listen to your podcast you started. And yeah, it gave me hope in a really weird time. And I found myself through that. Like a purpose.
That's beautiful. Oh my gosh. Do you feel like nature and nature journaling, it's a place that we can know ourselves better? You know, we're sort of studying what's outside of ourselves, but for me, and I know for a lot of other people, it is actually a very internal process as well, coming to know ourselves. Is it that for you sometimes as well?
Yeah. It's still a hard journey because being confronted with your inner world is it's not always pretty and shiny and yellow pretty box, but if you do all the what reminds me of and stuff, they're coming out some pretty interesting stuff. It's if you want to let yourself fall into that and accept it and feel safe with it, it can do so much. And also if you talk with other people about their journals, if you go in interaction and see how they see the world, I had so many beautiful talks about why do you see it like that? That's how you see your world. And it's so a good tool for understanding myself and other people. Yeah.
That's a real gift, isn't it? To let it be a point of connection with someone else, a point of entry into their world.
Yeah, and it's not just by words, but you can actually see it on a page, what's in their mind, and you can look at what their heart put on the page, and you can talk about it, and you have a point where you can start. That sometimes it's not that easy. How are you doing? Like, I don't know.
Yes.
If you can talk, why do you see the bug like that? Why did you draw the bug and not the pretty flower? Why? And it's often a very, very fun or connecting place to start.
Sometimes I ask my guests about whether nature journaling is a head activity or a heart activity, and I wonder about that for you.
For me, it's an activity where the heart is winning. It's a mixture, but I want to give the heart the most space for it because my head is still like, that's not a pretty picture, don't do it. And my heart is like, we don't care, be silent, head, we can do this. And it's because the self-critical and learned criticism in my head is always present, but my heart and I are very gentle to it, and it can stay, and we stroke it, but I want it to be a heart activity for me.
That's so beautiful. And what's your favorite way of experiencing nature? Do you like to go out by yourself for some quiet time? Do you like to go with somebody else? What's your, if you were to do it the perfect way for you, how would you do it?
Maybe there are two ways. I think nature experiences are very different for me if I'm alone or not. But actually I prefer to be alone because all of the stuff that's going on in the city, it's always loud and noisy, and I cherish the times I am just quiet and alone and don't have to look on anything. But sometimes I like to take my dog along because he sees so much. He's my eyes and ears and shows me the world. And yeah, I prefer to go alone, but it's also so nice if people are coming with me. It's a different experience, but if I have to choose one, I would be alone.
I agree. There's just something so special about both of those things, and they're very different, but very special in their own ways. Tell me about what you take with you when you go out for a nature journaling adventure. Do you have a special kit that you take?
Oh yeah, I tried recently the digital version because some of your guests said they're taking the iPad, and I was like, oh wow, I could do that, it didn't work. It didn't work out. No, it's too precious and it was too expensive that I'm always like, oh no, don't sit there. Maybe it gets muddy or something. So I just take a really cheap for watercolors sketchbook with me and a water tank. I don't know, how do you call a water brush? Water brush, yeah, where you have a little tank at the back. and some watercolor. I really like watercolors because they're very kind to me, because they just do their stuff, and I'm like, they're doing it. I just leading the general direction, and it looks pretty awesome. So I really like to carry a very minimalistic kit, and that's what I try to teach the people, that take the stuff you already have, and that's what I'm aiming for too.
Yeah, and so now you're actually teaching nature journaling. You do some in person and online, and I'd love for you to tell me all about the classes you've been leading.
Yeah, it's a very nice experiences. The online stuff I do for free, just on Instagram or Google Meet, or people can just join in the morning. It's called Nature Journaling and Coffee. We just meet before everyone goes to work or school or something. Everyone is like kind of grumpy, but yeah, we're doing stuff for ourselves. We're journaling now together, and
This
with
is
the
good
coffee.
for me.
Yeah, right. And it's like everyone is so happy afterwards and smiling, and not everybody is journaling, but just watching, and it's also very connected. And we're so many things we some riddles we in as a group we know now the answer to. And yeah, that's very, very nice. And I also do some offline teaching with older children now. They're like 15, 16. It's sometimes challenging, but as we all know, it's chaos at first, and you have to do some sacrificial pancake talking, and then they're amazed in the afterwards. And some really big guys who want to be cool just say, "Oh, one time I fell asleep on a leaf. Does that count as nature connection? It draw on my face. It's lines." Like, yeah, of course, this nature connection. He's like so proud. I'm like, yeah, I'm getting somewhere. Those cool guys are now like telling people about their story falling asleep on leaves, and I nature journaled a leaf on my face. There's like so many different experiences you can get, and those are not always the people that wanna nature journal. That's still a topic for me. Like, do I want to teach people who don't want to hear it? Is that a good way to do it? But somehow you can always get them, and they're just taking anything from it. Just maybe it's the story of somebody likes the story of me falling asleep on a leaf, or some are really intrigued, like, yeah, that's a good way for me just to relax in the evening or the breaks or something. Yeah,
Are those classes with older children through a school? How do they come to be with you?
Actually, that one time I told you about was a teacher wrote me on Instagram like, "Oh, I like your stuff. Do you want to teach at my school?" And I was like, "Really? Yeah, of course." And he's a really nice guy, and we're now talking and going on adventures and stuff. Instagram is a very connecting place for that, and the school must be open to stuff like that, and they must have a framework for that, because it's not always that easy if you have a strict plan of what the children should be taught, but somehow it's fitting in, and I think it's a good thing. If people are outside journaling, it's always a good way to spend your day.
So good. Yeah. And I feel like with schools, once teachers realize, they start to understand that nature journaling can be adapted to anything in the curriculum. It can be science, it can be art, it can be English, it can be all those things, and that is the cool thing about nature journaling.
Yeah, it was actually a teacher for biology and chemistry, I guess, and he was like, he's so fond of nature journaling now, because all of the scientific stuff, it never connected to his heart, and he never knew it before, and now he has a way. He now knows how he can paint the whole picture of biology for him.
Yes, and it makes it real. And for a child who's resistant, if you're, say, a teenage boy and you're resistant to science or resistant to these things, putting those things that you've learned in a lecture into real life on the page, and interacting with an insect and finding the body parts that you studied, it makes it real, it makes it interesting, it changes the whole experience in your mind, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's amazing.
I'm wondering about your relationship with social media, because you talked about Instagram being a very connected place, and I agree. I find that it's a very supportive, very deeply connected network of wonderful people, and at the same time there's this whole thing of that it takes so much time and effort and energy. And I'm wondering about, because your Instagram is growing. It's wonderful. You put a lot of effort in. You post there really regularly. I'm wondering about that, your relationship with social media and benefits and negatives.
Yeah, I'm very torn still. I try to point out for myself the positive points that people I cherish, I hold very dear to my heart. Like also like you, I never would have found you that fast maybe if there wasn't Instagram.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are always times where it's like a game, those Instagram stuff. You never know when it promotes you or not. And because if you're open to everyone commenting, there are negative comments coming and weird stuff. And there's kind of a pressure going on. If you don't post every day, then you make people forget you. And that doesn't feel so good. Next week, I'm off for 1 week because I'm at a camp outside and I'm really dreading that time. But also very glad that it's the first in 2 years that I'm off Instagram for a whole week. It sounds pretty crazy that I'm really offline and I'm like, oh no, people don't forget me. And it's like when they forget me after a week, then maybe they were not the people that should be here on my Instagram. But yeah, it's how do you call it? A sword with two edges.
Yes, double-edged sword.
Double-edged sword. It's a place where I love to connect to people, and it's like a tool. I always say you can use a hammer for destroying stuff, and you can build good stuff with it. And I try to use it for good, and also protect myself from mean comments, and be very strict about my boundaries, and learning a lot of stuff how to people to communicate those boundaries as well.
Yeah, it is a complicated relationship, but I think people so Instagram crashed for a day recently, and I think people were a little bit happy about that. I don't know.
I was happy. I was so happy. Like it was in the evening here in Berlin. It was like, what do I do in the evening? I read a book and it was like, I posted. I cannot tell anyone what I'm reading now. That's a weird thing. What have I done 10 years before? And those habits come out when there's nothing to do. And I was like, oh, that's good. But also, if Instagram wouldn't have gone online again, I would have lost all the connections I have. And that was the point where I said, no, I have to also parallel somehow build some way that people can connect to me. So I'm building a Discord server.
Okay, good.
Do you know Discord?
I do. I haven't used it for anything of my own, but I do know it, and I do know that connects a lot of people. I think it's really important, and I had the same thing, like, how do I reach these people when social media falls down and doesn't get back up? And so I started, the very next day I posted something and said, if you want to keep going with me, then join up to my mailing list, because
me too.
What's going to happen?
Yeah, and you never know. And I think building up a mailing list is always a good idea. You can reach out, and it costs nothing. The people are just in, and that's also my way of going. And the Discord thing is also that people can interconnect, that I'm not always the one talking to them, but they can interchange their stuff, and it's working pretty nicely. It's also just in German, but there's some meetups of people in other cities, and like, oh cool, you know each other through me, and now you're just on your own. It's nice.
That's wonderful. Is nature journaling big in Germany?
Not yet, I guess, but there are some people, some of your guests also you interviewed a while ago is also living in Berlin, and people don't know it by that name, I guess. Some of the people I had in course are like, oh, that's what I'm doing all the time. I didn't have a name for it, but I'm always sitting outside and writing poems and drawing stuff to that. And I think if it's coming more into presence also after Corona, people are searching for new hobbies and taking time for being out in nature, and I hope it gets known more.
Well, one way that you're helping it get known is that you have a podcast, and it's in German, and it's also under the same name, Wieder Wilder Werden. And it's all about what you teach, rewilding in the city. And I wish I could speak German.
Yeah, it's only in German, right? Yeah.
So I want to listen to you, and I can't understand what you're saying, but it's beautiful. I'd love for you to tell me about the podcast project, how you got started, and what it's all about, what listeners can expect when they listen.
Yeah, it was an idea in 2019, where I was listening by myself to a lot of podcasts, and I was like, I could tell people just audio what I'm thinking. I will try that. It was just a project for me, if I can do it, more the technical stuff, and like I can broadcast stuff on my own. I don't need a radio station. That's a lot of power. Like also Instagram, you can talk to a lot of people, and it's very low entrance point. And I just talked about how to be wild in the city, barefoot walking in the city and stuff like that. Just some random tips, and it developed into a like 2 weekly me talking about my experience in the city, some more of a storytelling, and like not fairy tale stories, but it's more the what I experience in the Berlin city, and some stuff people can take with them, some tips when they have maybe the same problems in their life, same thoughts. And now I'm also interviewing some interesting people that started. I have now a co-host. My boyfriend's also joining now. It's very exciting, and also because I like talking by myself, but I also like to you and I like talking about stuff, and seeing the mindset and worldview of other people, and it's developing in a very nice format now, and it will also be some solo episodes still, but I like the interview format now very much.
That's wonderful, and I think that interviews and that moment of connection when you meet someone and you realize, yes, you see the world similar to me, and I bring my experiences and you bring your different experiences, but we can have that moment together and say, isn't this incredible?
Yeah.
Isn't it incredible what you can see? And that is a really special thing.
Yeah, it's so connecting. It feels just so good.
Mm-mm. And I think that this need, you talked before about that the person has to have a need, and the need to return to something that we knew as children, that we know in our DNA, in our historical, presence that's still within us. And I think that more and more people are feeling that need. Do you think that's true?
I deeply believe that it's true. If people listen, they will find that the tiny spot in their heart that's telling them something's missing. Maybe not everyone knows what it is, and they're searching for it and filling it with stuff, iPhones, yes. I don't know what.
Yes.
But if you show them that nature could be a possibility, that it feels good, it costs nothing, they can just try it out, and it will be an adventure, even in the city, that there will be some awe and wonder. It's not always like they're going for to be outside 24/7 or living in a small hut in the forest. That's not working either. But if my wish is that some people just stop and look at the flowers, or just at the tiny bugs, or maybe the pigeons are not like swooped away, but no, leave them alone. They're also living here, and respecting nature, and just there's a codependency in caring for nature, and the small bits. And I think they're in the heart, and there are many ways to reach it.
Yeah, I think that this tumultuous time with COVID and everyone feeling a bit unsafe, a bit unsettled, has woken that need in more people. And nature has been a real solace for me and for many other people. And something that I've been reflecting on in terms of like since this COVID time started was that whatever crazy thing is going on in the human world, nature just keeps going. Yeah. The ants still keep building colonies, bees keep pollinating flowers, foxes keep doing their thing, and there's some real stability in that. In a time when we need stability, it can be found in nature, even though it's always in flux. Like, nature is never in balance as such, but it always keeps going. Do you find that same feeling?
Oh yeah, you said that very nicely. I feel that too. It's like a fallback. You can always come back to nature, and it's hugging you and say, everything's all right. Maybe you humans are weird right now and not allowed to go out or anything, but we're still here. You can just, if you're not allowed outside, you can watch us from your window. We're here. We bring the nature to you. You can look at the stars. They're always here, maybe looking different from Europe, but they're always here. The moon is always there, and if you reach out for that, it's always giving you hope, I guess.
And so right now we're here in Australia moving into spring, and I'm loving that. And I know that you're moving into autumn, and I'd be really interested to know about how you experience autumn and what you've been seeing and how it feels inside you to go into this new season.
Right, yeah, it's upside down. Oh, I love fall. It's maybe I say that every season, but fall is my favorite kind of season right now, actually. It's a time of calmness. Everything is slowing down. There are less people outside actually because it's getting colder and everyone is deep inside their coats and walking slower and looking maybe at the yellow leaves and all the squirrels coming out and children feed them. There's so much liveliness still in the world, but you feel the need to slow down and maybe reflect on stuff. And yeah, I really love it. The city is so colorful right now. You can see everywhere the spots of the color and all the people looking up. Finally, they're looking up at the trees and like, oh yeah, they're pretty beautiful.
That's wonderful. It's a time when nature makes itself very obvious.
It's really like, so yeah, here I am. Look at me now. I'm going to sleep. Last entrance. See you next year.
I've never experienced that in its full extent. I've lived overseas, but never, I've never felt a full year of those very distinctly changing seasons because seasonal changes here are much more subtle. And so
I didn't know.
I'm really fascinated by that.
Oh yeah, it's like you can really tune into nature every day. Oh, now it's that, and the birds going now in their winter homes, and you can really like if you listen to it, you feel the nature and the year going on. It's changing. It feels really good. It's really nice. So then oneself can slow down too.
Yeah. It's almost like you're forced to be in rhythm with nature. We have this sort of global world where you can get strawberries at any time of the year from overseas, and you don't have to eat seasonally because people are importing fruit and vegetables. But in this way, it's like you just want to be cozy. You want to eat stews and you want to eat root vegetables in a warm dish. You don't want to eat a salad from somewhere exotic. You want to listen to what nature's telling you.
Everyone is eating pumpkins now. You can't get any food without pumpkins now. It's like, oh yeah, I know we're in October and autumn is starting. Yeah, but also you can get strawberries also here year round. But it's the need and the feeling of what would feel good now is pretty strong.
That's a lovely way to be, just in tune with the rhythm of it.
Yeah, and you can even do that in the city. You can also just get regional and seasonal food here and support local farmers, and it's really nice.
It has been such a heartwarming experience to chat with you about this. Thank you so much for being a guest.
Thank you so much, Bethany. It was a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Verena. I really think that her work is important because so many people live in big cities, and finding wild, untouched places to experience nature isn't possible for a lot of people. Learning to see and value the nature that does exist alongside us in big cities is a wonderful skill. And Verena shows us that it just involves opening our eyes, paying attention, and having a heart full of curiosity and empathy for what we see around us. Follow the links in the show notes to visit Verena's website and Instagram. And if you're a German speaker, you can search for Wieder Wilder Werden podcast on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you so much for listening. See you next week.